Hello friends, welcome to Movi channel. In the film, monsters come out of the ground and cover the whole city. The number of victims of animal attacks on people increased, and a pandemic was declared in the American states. Despite the fact that wild animals are blind, they have excellent hearing, so the government declared a state of emergency and called on residents to stay at home and turn off their phones. The corpses of those who did not listen to this were lying in the streets throughout the city. It got to the point where the survivors of the beast attack cut out their tongues to stop them from making a sound. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow the developments. The film begins with two men destroying a nest of monstrous creatures at the bottom of a cliff. They unleash monsters on the face of the earth. Meanwhile, a schoolgirl named Carly stood at the intersection. He lost his hearing in a car accident when he was young, but he can speak and can tell people what they want by their facial expressions. He only has one friend and communicates with him through sign language. This woman is Miranda, Carlin's mother. At the same time, he warns his son Kyle about the dangers of video games to children's health, which Kyle doesn't think so. A few moments later, Carly arrived home. He speaks with his family in sign language. This time, he revealed his romantic relationship with his friend because he came home late. See, Miranda is worried about him and wants to know who his boyfriend is. In the evening, when Carly's dad Stanley comes home from work, the family is eating around the table as usual. After dinner, Carly watches the news on her tablet in her bedroom. He sees some kind of birds flying out of the ground on the news. After a while, this message will be shown on TV. A U.S. news agent says the entire city has been attacked by an unknown type of pterosaur-like creature. Several scientists are talking about the rise of these creatures to the Earth with different predictions. These creatures can kill a person in seconds. Residents who make noise in the city become their prey, which is why the safety committee insists that people stay at home quietly. Horrified, everyone watches the news and Stanley decides to go to the countryside because it is peaceful and quiet. They set off with Sugar. They are joined by their neighbor Glenn and set off. On the way, they stop to refuel the car. Carly is walking the dog when she notices something and comes to her senses. A stranger approaches them and demands to silence the dog. The stranger's goal was to have their car. He pops and shoots upwards. A short distance later, Glenn shoots him in the leg. They leave the stranger and continue on their way. They face heavy traffic in the morning. Glenn suggests a different route to the village, and they change paths. As they drive down the road, a herd of deer comes out in front of them, and Glenn's car crashes into a ravine. Stanley and Miranda go downstairs to inspect the car. Glenn was in bad shape, he couldn't move because of a broken leg. Stanley tries to help her, and Miranda has already called 911 to report the situation. Glenn, realizing his day is over, asks Steve for a gun and says they can leave him. Steve says Glenn will shoot him if he doesn't agree. Steve and Miranda go upstairs and tell her family that she's okay. As they are about to get into the car, Carly notices that she is messing with the dog. After a while, the beasts hit the car. Since they have already taken over the whole city, they find them by their sounds. At the same time, Glenn hears the sound of wild creatures and attracts them. He sacrificed himself for his friend by firing several shots from a pistol. The dog is making noise inside the car, so Stanley lets him out. It was a great loss for Carly. Stanley could not stay here with his family for a long time, so he decided to walk the road. Along the way, Stanley's mother started coughing. Miranda covered his mouth to stop him from making a sound. They had to rest for a while. Kyle looked around and saw a house. They reached that house in the evening. The house is surrounded by an iron fence, and when they hit the fence, the bells ring. After a while, the master of the house came out with a gun in his hand. He attracted the attention of the beasts by shooting at them, and the beasts devoured him. Stanley found a hole there and went inside and looked around the house. When he was sure that there was no one in the house, he called the family members to enter through the hole. Kyle encountered a snake in the middle of the tunnel, and the sound of the snake attracted the beast. The creature killed the snake. On the other side of the hole, Miranda was spotted by one of the predators. To help them, Stanley started a grass-cutting machine. The creatures were distracted and rushed at the equipment. Stanley goes inside with his family and searches the house for medicine to treat Miranda's injury. Carly talks to a friend on a video call as the evening approaches. His friend said that his parents were killed by wild creatures. Their conversation did not go far and the communication was lost. The next day, Miranda's wound was found to be infected. If antibiotics are not given in time, the infection can spread throughout the body. Stanley and Carly are forced to go to the city in search of medicine. Dead bodies were lying on the roads, and the city was quiet. They reached the hospital and went inside. Inside, it was full of corpses and smelled of them. While Stanley gets the medicine he needs, Carly looks at the corpses and sees the monster's babies. Creatures noticed their sound and occupied the room. Carly came up with a brilliant plan and motioned for Stanley to set off the fire alarm. Stanley starts it by lighting a fire and survives the attack of the monsters. Leaving the sick room, they encountered a man. His tongue is cut out and he practices a different religion. The stranger urges Stanley and Carly to join them. Carly had read about them in the news. At this point, Kyle informed his mother and grandmother that they had arrived. The next day, Carly told her dad about the man from last night. It is said that the survivors are rioting and cutting their tongues under the slogan of a different religion. Carly said she saw it on the news. After talking for a while, they come with their partners to the person of yesterday. Stanley walks up to them and tells them he won't join. The stranger explains that he will take his children. Stanley gets angry and points a gun at them. The stranger advises not to make noise, because there are wild creatures roaming around. They say they will come later. In the evening, Carly texts her friend and talks to her. Suddenly it sounds like someone is walking outside and it wakes everyone up. A girl looks alone outside. They let the girl in and ask her what happened. Unfortunately, the little girl cannot speak because her tongue was cut out. It turned out that this girl was sent on purpose. After a while, the telephones in his stomach started ringing. Strangers also put a phone on Carlin's window to attract the beasts. Predatory creatures are trying to enter the house. They put the phones in water to drown out the noise. At this time, strangers are kidnapping Carly. When they got out, Carly's grandmother threw herself at them and saved her granddaughter. Grandma realized that she couldn't help them and shouted loudly. This attracted the beast's attention, and Carly's grandmother was killed along with the strangers. It was raining heavily that day. Suddenly, someone took Carly hostage. It turned out to be the work of a complete stranger. Before they could get far, Miranda stabbed one of them. Stanley is punching that stranger. They finally break it all down and calm Miranda Stanley down. After the incident, Sal saw a woman and a girl staring at them. The next day they set out, because their old place became a danger to them. At the end of the movie, we see Carly and her friend hunting the beast. They are now living peacefully together. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel.